Thank you all for coming, and it's a pleasure to have Dr. Sanjeev Kumar from Department of Health Policy and Management, Yale University. Previously, he did his PhD from Southern Methodist University, and he has extensive experience in publication, including journals like Jibo and the like. So today he will talk about the interrelationship between health and risk preference. That is his one of the most important major research domains, and he is currently pursuing a number of projects on that front. So as some of you are actually working on things like that, so I'm sure it will be of great interest to you. He will be available this evening as well, so in case you are interested, and he has graciously agreed to give some time.
I'm very interested.
So yeah, there are some interested students, so I will okay, so we will talk about does health influence risk preference. You have 1 hour, you can take questions in between or you can save them for the end, depending on how you want it. Sure.
So Sanjeev is my friend, and I got in contact with him over when I heard that he's I'm in the market. I would like to come and present my work, because this is a very novel area in terms of finding the connection between health and risk preference. It is very underexplored, and putting these questions in front of new faces and young minds can help me get some insights that I may not be aware of. So that was the purpose of contacting Sanjeev and suggesting that maybe I should come and talk about this project. So the way I got into this area of health is very, very intriguing. I was talking to my niece, and I was asking her about what does she know about how the tape recorder records our voice. And she said, like, uncle, I don't know. So I googled. It was in 2008. I was working on effect of labor saving technologies on a real exchange rate. That was one of my papers on PhD. So she said, I don't know. So I googled, and the information that came out was it's iron ferroxide that is put on the plastic tape, and that records the voice. So then I googled, like, where is iron in our body? Because like I always had this perspective that human capital is all about memory formation. Think about coming to IIM and forgetting things that you learned here. There is no human capital. So fundamentally, when you are talking about human capital, it's memory. So I googled, and it was like, iron is there in our blood. And then I started reading on lack of iron, and it was 2008, and DHS data was there. I explored DHS data, and it was at that time almost 70% of pregnant women in many states in India were reporting to be anemic. Think if for a pregnant woman she receives anemia, that means it's going to affect the wiring of the neurons in the brain of our fetus. So I thought, wow, like this no one has talked about this linkage between biology and the kind of human capital formation that we have. So at that time there was an Israeli economist visiting SMU, Istek Zilka. He is quite big in human capital theory. So when I suggested that number to him, he said, Sanjeev, I don't need it. That was his reaction. I don't believe that these kind of figures are there. Just guess the number for America or for any middle income countries. What's the prevalence of anemia? Sorry?
Less than 10%.
Less than 10%. In America, probably it's 2-3%. And here in India, you have 70% pregnant women, they are anemic. More than 50% at that time, 2008, kids who are stunted, wasting was like. So my point was like, why these things and the causal mechanism, how these things affect our brain, our health, has been there with us for the last 70 years. America has been fortifying its cereal since 1930s. And here we are not just completely oblivious of these linkages. So the question why this state of affair is there. And since that time I have been thinking about what variable can I look into that can capture the essence of this question. And that's why I've been telling people that this question chose me rather than me choosing this question. So one day, so I was doing this paper in OLG framework, it's a macro paper, effect of memory formation and savings behavior. And when I did the calculation, I came across this relationship between risk measures and elasticity of substitution. Are you aware of that relationship? Among students. So the way you can capture that, let's see. So this is first period consumption, second period consumption. What's the difference between this indifference curve and more curved indifference curve? Sorry, more curved indifference curve. In the expected utility theory, we know that it's a curvature of the utility function that captures the risk aversion, and that is inversely related to substitutability across words. So if you think about it, if indeed people who are in good health, society which are in better health, they come up with commodities that are easily substitutable across different domains, or individuals who are more likely to substitute. So let's say that I'm hungry and I was eating apples. Now I want to eat orange. If society is supplying orange very easily, I will substitute away from apple to orange. So this relationship might be at the core of how well a market is functioning. There's a kind of big leap that I'm making, but I feel like what I have to lose. If there indeed is some relationship between health and risk preference being at the core of substitutability that defines modern economy, then let's explore this. Okay? So that was the longer background. Then recently I was talking to someone, and so this has now become part of a bigger project that I'm working on. And that has to do with, I was talking to Benita and she was mentioning this lack of trust between physicians and patients. And so many such questions are there when it comes to presence of information asymmetry, and when I have latitude to exploit your situation. But somehow social norms comes about that prevents me. What is that? So that is another domain through which I am looking at health sector. And so I was talking to someone and he suggested that, do you know the meaning of Sanskrit word for health? Swasth. And what is the literal meaning of swasth? Anyone? Sorry? Yeah, that's the what's the literal meaning? How many of you have seen this movie Arrival? The recent movie Arrival? No? Okay, so literal meaning of swasth is one who is situated within his own self. But who can be situated within his own self? A person who acknowledges his own ignorance. Like knowing how little you know. No? So that makes you very exploratory. If you know that you don't know that much. So I'm going to link this idea of risk preference to the idea of your propensity to explore. When you are more likely to explore. When you knowingly know that you don't know your environment that well. So it seems the way in India we conceptualize the idea of health, it was very, very holistic. Okay? So this project inheres that spirit. Okay? So I'll go through this introduction, conceptual framework that I just mentioned. I'm going to equate the who is more likely to take risk? Person who is more likely to explore his environment. Okay. The data this because for this kind of question, the kind of data that I need is not there in developing countries. So I'm using this American data set for the data set that was collected for adolescents, and then they were tracked until they were in their early 30s. So it's a longitudinal data set that I have, and it's simple empirical methods that I'm using. Simple OLS, random effect model, fixed effect model, generalized or order logic model. Okay, so then you can just, once you have the data, it takes 10 minutes to run that in state. Okay, so that's no longer the challenge. Challenge now we are facing is to formulate questions that can give us insight about the functioning of the world in which we are living. How many of you have read this book of The Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy? Anyone? I strongly advise you to read that book. You will be blown away. It's so beautiful. And actually, you might have heard of Sanjeev. So he established this small non-profit organization called Ideas 42, and he has got the inspiration from that book. Okay, so read that book. The idea is the challenge is to come up with very good questions. And once you have questions like things happens in a way that you come to a position where you can answer them. Okay? And there again, if you are more likely to ask questions if you are of exploratory nature. Is that not true? That means you are more likely to, if you are more, your propensity to seek risk is higher. Risk can be defined in many domains, no? Then I will go to the findings, conclusions, tentative policy implications. Actually, policy implication is too exciting when it comes to if this association is what I am claiming it to be. Okay? And the future direction. So this is a very expository work. I was curious about this. What it will take us to create from. If I come from another dimension, and that is the kind of challenge that we are facing globally. What is that? India is adding population of whole Australia every year, and how much job is creating? 10% of that, 1 to 1.5 million jobs, while 12 million Indians above age 18 are becoming part of the workforce. So what are we going to do with them? Like, I really feel that we have windows of opportunity for 10 to 15 years to figure that out. If you don't figure that out, we are looking at a very unstable time. And if this is true, that health affects risk preference, then by investing in their health, we can make them more exploratory. That means they will be far more engaged. And it's the engagement that will give rise to different innovations. And that's one of the reasons I want to talk to Dr. Gupta. And what does it take to create individuals who are very exploratory, who wants to find out the way things are working? If you look at the modern growth theory, what is suggesting? There's ideas. It's ideas that is the core of the modern development that societies have been experiencing. What China was able to do in last 30 years, how much time did it take for Western Europe to do it? Probably 150 years. And if we play our cards nicely in India, we can achieve the similar kind of changes, but not in terms of material growth, because we don't have resources. In terms of quality of life, I have a PhD. I can sit in one corner if I have access to my computer and my books, and I don't need anything else. I don't think my quality of life is going to get affected significantly because I'm very, very self-engaged. So even if we cannot get the kind of material achievement that China has got, if we can ensure that our youths are in good health, which they are not in good health. They are suffering from stunting, wasting. That can help us solve problem. to large extent. So that's also motivation for getting into this project. Okay. So it's not very ambitious in terms of what it is seeking to answer in this paper, and that is, does health during adolescence have long-term effect on risk preference? Do changes in health status have longer-term effect on risk preference? Okay, change here just health level, and here changes in health status. And then how does risk type affect the effect of health on risk preference? If you are a person, because when it comes to your risk preference, there is certain innate dimension to it that you are born with. Okay? And there are some dimensions that are malleable. So people who are of higher risk type, are they more sensitive to their health status, changing their health status or less? Okay, these three questions are there.
What are the variables you are considering for defining risk preference? I mean, is it consumption? Is it for defining risk preference?
Yeah, I will come to that. Okay, let's hold on to this. So I already have gone through importance. There are other importance too in terms of Professor Abhijit Banerjee from MIT was there at London School of Economics, and once the video comes out of his lecture, I strongly advise all of you to see that video. He has set agenda for a young researcher for next 10 years. Like you can look into these questions from so many different angles. Once you become aware that this is what the problem is, the resources are misallocated. In the context of India, a person who can become a good teacher, he is a police officer. Or a person who becomes a professor, he is working in a bank. Or a firm that can do very well with the extra resources, he does not have access to those credit. Person who should be going into, let's say, should play cricket, he has become a politician because of his network that he has access to. So you look around and misallocation is everywhere. But he is focusing on misallocation because of the asset market imperfections, inefficiencies in asset market. And then this connection between health and risk preference is there in asset market everywhere. No? So that feeds into that debate too. Another person that came at London School of Economics, I was there for the last 3 days, Glenn Lowry. So he's the person who came up with the word social capital. You must have heard of that, no? So he is very worried about the situation of blacks in America, African American people. And he used this phrase, punishing the poor. But when you look into his data, most of people who are getting incarcerated are people who are in poor health. Okay? So health is kind of axle rod around which a lot of things are moving. And because, I will come back to some other parts later. Because it is a necessary factor, not a sufficient factor, we are not paying that much attention. Most of the time, so when you do econometrics, what relationship you recover from the econometric analysis? Is it relationship with sufficiency? No, ceteris paribus, once X changes, Y changes. No, it is a relations of sufficiency. Necessary factors, they don't vary that much, and hence statistics, econometrics is not very helpful there. You have to read anthropology, you have to read science to find out the necessary factor that you should think about. That's the limitation of a statistical and econometric analysis. So I remember when I started working with Abhijit in 1997, and I was very excited. I read this book by Karl Popper called Open Society and Its Enemies. So in the morning I was having breakfast with Abhijit Banerjee, and I asked him, hey, have you read this book by Karl Popper? And he said, yes, when I was in 9th grade. He told me that he reads 80% of the books that he reads comes from field other than economics. Okay? And that's how he can frame questions in a way that kind of skirt that concern of necessary factors. Because he understands the history and geography and anthropology so well. Well, most of us like that we don't. So necessary factors, and actually on the health issue also, he's one of the first person who started working on micronutrient deficiency in Udaipur. Like he's so much aware about the nature, the way we come to know things and what we can, the approach that we should take to do something about it. Okay? So it's a necessary factor, and that's my intuition that that's why health is not a top priority. So there's an amazing experiment, randomized control trial that was done in Andhra Pradesh, and when they bundle insurance product, health insurance product with microfinance, the uptake of microfinance reduced. It's just like the people, because they don't understand the way health influences. I always ask, how long did it take for us to know that the air that we are breathing in, it has oxygen in it that helps us with our survival. We know it only in the last 500 years. And we have been taking air for last millions and millions of years. No? So something which is very obvious, we tend to ignore that. So health seems to be very obvious factor, and that's one of the reasons we are not making it into a top priority, and no other society exemplifies that than India. More. Yeah.
So you just digressing for what you're saying, but the graph is of expenditure as a percentage of GDP. So are you using that as a proxy for saying?
Proxy to say that health is not a top priority.
Yeah.
Globally.
By that logic, for the US, it would be.
Yeah, that's an outlier. That's an outlier because of the way. That's also a very active area of research. That's an outlier. Their healthcare industry is the reason the healthcare cost is very high. Not because people are very concerned about their health. If you look at them, the consumption of fruits and vegetables, how frequently they visit the doctor, all of that are not at the optimal level. So because of the fiscal concern in terms of the budget deficit and sustainability, fiscal sustainability of America, they are putting a lot of focus on health. Not because people have become very concerned about their health. If you look at the smoking rate, if you look at the use of drugs and all, it's pretty high. Okay? So Schultz, like he has kind of concept, paraphrase what I was sharing with you, is that the little consensus is there because how to reckon the benefits due to improving health is we don't have very good consensus about it. Okay, so this idea that health affects your risk preference is one way we can say that that's one channel. Okay. So if you look at the definition of health, you will see that we are moving to our more operational definition of health, and that kind of feeds into this idea of adaptability, the way you adapt to your conditions. So look at this 2011, the British Mental Journal, the ability to adapt and self-manage in the face of social, physical, emotional challenges. It's a far more operational idea and ties very nicely with this idea of risk preferences, your propensity to explore. Your environment and your constraints around you are changing at social, physical, emotional level, and how you respond to that. If you are able to respond to that in an optimal fashion, you are in good health. So taking that definition also makes the relationship between health and risk preference a little bit more direct. Okay? So what is risk? So I'm not taking a route of utility function and all here. I'm just saying that risk is tolerance to the threat to valued outcomes or the possibility of harm. In a very regular sense, if I'll ask you what do you mean by that you take risk? And you say I'm taking an action that I know might not be very good for me, yet I'm doing it. Now, So that's our regular understanding of risk. Okay, so so propensity to explore one's environment. Whenever you are exploring your environment, you are leaving something that you are comfortable with and trying something new. Okay, so it's kind of very isomorphic. And then, if you look into the literature that's coming out of cognitive psychology and all, you will see that most of the time when we are assessing our environment, all that is happening at the system 1 level. So if you remember Kahneman intervals, Kahneman is thinking fast, thinking slow. Our brain is divided into system 1 and system 2. System 1 is very intuitive, fast. System 2 is very deliberate. It thinks through things. And another research that has come out recently that suggests that in our reptilian brain, 86% of our neurons are there in our reptilian brain. Only 14% in our prefrontal cortex, which is involved in thinking. Okay.
So essentially, just combining the points that you said so far, and the way you connected the health to the way you're thinking, right? So essentially, you're saying the better the health is, the higher the endowment of cognitive resources you have. So essentially, you're trying to say that, and going back to the policy implications of enabling the youth to become motivated so that they become more risk-seeking or exploratory in nature, you're just trying to say that improvement in health is actually increasing the stock of utility that they would get over the entire lifespan, which could be an increased quality of life. Yeah. So you're just converting what is essentially has been the connection between income to risk to health to risk.
Yes. So focus. So people are. So you will see that people who are richer, they are more likely to take risk.
Yeah.
But who are the people? So I call it lower level of causality. We have to move a little bit further down on the causal chain to find more policy levers to affect the state of affairs around us. That's a very good point. So the causal chains that are there. So when Abhijit is talking about asset market being one of the reasons for misallocation, I will say let's move a little bit further down. Why all the countries where asset market are functioning very well are countries where people are healthier? Is it just a coincidence? Or maybe it's a healthier society which ended up having a better functioning asset market.
Actually, that part I have a lot of problems about.
Yeah?
Because, I mean, taking cue from what she said, I can argue that it's the higher income which correlates with a bunch of factors, including a better performing asset market. As a corollary, people have a better lifestyle. So, better lifestyle, I mean, the way you are proposing the whole story is, it's the sort of single most important causal factor. It can be important.
I'm not
saying that it's unimportant, but just by itself, just because some people are healthy, does not necessarily imply that all economic arguments that you are giving will fall into place.
So think about industrial revolution. Fogel argument of industrial revolution. France and England are almost similar kind of societies. Why did industrial revolution take place in England? When they are looking at the data, this guy was awarded Nobel Prize. When they are looking at the data, they are finding that Englishmen became far healthier when on the anthropometric method, like the taller and heavier than French. So it's not a sufficient factor, but you have to ensure that people are in good health in order for income to take off in a more sustainable fashion.
I think one way to think about it is the substitutability between time and money. I mean, if those two axes are typically now discussed, operationalized on monetary dimension, this helps to translate to time and money elasticity over time. I mean, that's what I would think. Is that what you foresee? Like a better health leading to higher quality of youth, enabling, exploratory behavior. Would that translate to time as one commodity and money as one commodity, and the way they substitute their labor force participation vis-a-vis others?
Yeah, that is one way to look at it. Yeah, but like once you take this view that if you are in good health, then your cognitive endowment, is helping you to explore the environment more. Then next stage can be what is suggested.
Cognitive psychology route rather than microeconomic.
Yeah, that is, I'm taking that now to make health salient entity. It's not salient the way we have went around analyzing the policies, and the result is you look in India, where like how we are like treating health. Government is spending like maybe 2% of GDP on health. That's one of the lowest in the world. Because we have failed to make health a salient entity. And that's what I'm trying to do here.
So, I don't recall exact arguments in the book. So, when Sanjeev talks about time and monetary scarcity and the way people make decisions, they're essentially trying to say that when people are scarce in health domain, also they make suboptimal decisions, like the way they. So, he talks about decision making under scarcity, right?
Yes.
So, that's essentially what.
Yes, that's one person. You are going to have a visitor who I am from Yale, Sam Sundar. I strongly, if he is giving some talk, I strongly advise you to attend his talk, because we are exploring this idea of neglect of opportunity cost. So Sanjeev is making this point that when people are very poor, then they are very cognizant about the opportunity cost, while when people are richer, they are not. Okay, and so this argument also will feed into that debate. Yeah.
Trying to understand, when you say health, what do you define? Is a person who is anemic, is also unhealthy, and a person who is diabetic, or in US there's cancer and having a.
So that's hold on, because that is the next point here. The measurement of homeostasis might hold the key. Now, because of the technology that has come about, we can measure different dimensions of health continuously. So, a person who is diabetic, obviously, he is not healthy on some dimension. No?
Because why I would say, because you gave the example of industrial evolution, where while you say the kind of jobs that require industrial evolution also change currently what the kind of job or what productivity would be like. We don't increase the number of machines. Similarly, the nature of health also changes on disease patterns.
Yeah.
What infection, people might die of plague then, but might not die of plague or any other infection. So when you overall say health, I'm just thinking that if how to.
That's why we have to come up to an understanding about a core of what we mean by that, and that this definition, that ability to adapt and self-manage in the face of social, physical, and emotional challenges, kind of transcend time and other concerns.
So you mean to say like a person with diabetes who can amputated his foot can still manage going to an office and sitting in a computer and work? So in your definition, be healthy.
It will no. Yep. So we have to create some graded measure, like measure, and we'll say that okay, his health is at level 3 rather than level 5. Okay. So I don't know if you know about the story of zero in Greece. You know about that? You have read this book? So this is story of decimal system going to Greece before it went to Italy, where financial industry took off. And you know why they did not accept decimal system in Greece? Because they did not accept the idea of zero. And their idea was, how can something stand for nothing? So they were less exploratory. They did not want to leave the comfort of what they know. And the result was the financial industry took off in Italy. Because with a decimal system, what can you do? You can calculate interest rate. And that was a huge technological breakthrough for financial industry. Okay? And the whole idea is like, once we see health as one of the primary common entity that we need to tweak, we can institute a feedback loop. If you are healthier, then you'll take more risk. If you are willing to take more risk, your asset market will function better, you will be richer, and that will feed back. Okay? And below all that I have told you about is this idea of this approach and avoid the dilemma, that is any decision that you take. Right now, the words that I'm using, I have to decide whether I should use word A or word B to convey the same message. Should I do this or should I do that? Okay? And that also, if you'll go into this literature, the biology becomes very, very salient, and hence health becomes very salient in the decision-making process. So let me just go through the snapshot of main findings, and what I'm finding through all these econometric method that I've just briefly mentioned, I'll go into details later, is that better health during adolescence is associated with more willingness to take risk around age 30. Okay? Experience of a reduction in health stock between adolescence and young adulthood is even more strongly associated. So let's say that today you are in good health, you are at age 18, age 26, your health has gone down, you are more likely to take risk. I was not expecting that. And then our findings remain robust after including 2 heritable measures of personality. And the reason I am doing that is because this innate feature of risk preference, if it is determined by your genetic endowment, then these 2 features are very genetically determined, heritable. So you control for that. I am proxying for just genetic endowment through these 2 measures of personalities, because that data will allow me only to create these 2 measures. Peer effect. Okay, so a random effect model is the way I'm trying to capture that, okay? So determinant, there's not much in the literature on this direction of causality, from health to risk preference, okay? The one that you have, that all these work are very recent. When it comes to health, this like a measure of height is correlated with risk preference. Taller you are, more likely that you are going to take risk, okay? Then cognitive ability, but health per se is missing. Only paper that is including health explicitly is by Hammett. And that problem with that analysis is completely cross-sectional. So you cannot control for the reverse causality. And, okay? So that problem I'm able to.
Example that you mentioned about the shift in risk differences from 18 years to 26 years.
Yeah.
Did the pattern prevail even after 30 years?
I don't have data on that. So that's the next future direction. Like there is another data set called Health and Retirement Studies in the US, and I'm going to use that data to see the behavior.
So the health decision making, what they say, sometimes there is inverse S risk preferences only because of the horizon effects. Like as an 18-year-old, you see not the fact that you live only till 60 years and you earn till then, or you live till 80 years and earn till 60 and based on decisions accordingly. You have much shorter, you're myopic in nature. Okay. But as you become slightly closer to your earning ability, you become clearer to the horizon. And there is differences reverse in the other direction as you move closer to the earning horizon. Like when you move closer to 60, 70, there is differences.
So there is no concern.
Yeah, so there are different reasons why people say at different phases of life, the quality of life, the marginal significant influence of the marginal improvement in the quality of life has got a different impact.
Okay. I will look into it. I have not invested a lot of time in that. Understand that.
There is also some stream of literature that says that at least in India they study children who are either from very poor family or who are having risk of open defecation and their performance in schools as towards the 10th class. Will it also mean if you perform in the school can be used as something that they are doing good at school, they might?
We can talk about that as another project I'm doing on open defecation. And there my research is suggesting that it's a poor nutrition that might be the reason for open defecation rather than this culture and other things that people are talking about, but we can talk about it later, okay? Yeah, there is a connection between health and open defecation and performance. So the Dean Spears, they are looking at how does open defecation affect the health. My point is it's a fact that people are in poor health, that is the reason why open defecation is so prevalent. Who went to in Europe to ask people not to open defecate and not be, Thames River used to be so dirty that they will hold a parliamentary meeting 1 mile away from the Thames River. No one went there. They realized that, hey, this is not a very healthy environment, let's clean it. No? Because they were becoming healthier over time. They were getting into a position to assess the hygiene content of the environment at their own. Only exception is Bangladesh. Bangladesh, for some reason, they have succeeded beyond imagination when it comes to reducing open defecation, and then Bangladesh is a very special kind of society in terms of like, even when they are looking into the cooperative societies and all, Bangladesh were always doing very well. So it may be very idiosyncratic achievement that Bangladesh has, but obviously like that has given rise to the idea that you can use the social campaigning and social learning as a medium through which you can reduce open defecation. So in literature there is not much to, that's one of the challenge that I'm facing in this research. There's not much to hang on, for me. Because most of the time people have not paid enough intellectual capital into discovering this, exploring this relationship between health and risk preference. So conceptual framework further, this is all part of work that I'm still doing, is that risk preference. So I've been talking to Professor Sundar, and he does not like the fact that I'm using risk preference because of the, traditionally in economics, we say that preference is something that we don't observe. So maybe I will change the title to health and attitude to risk. Okay, and health and perception of opportunity set. This is amazing research that's coming out from Cambridge. That if I will, in a randomized control trial, if some people are given drink which is laced with glucose, and other people are given drink that is laced with sweetener, which does not have this caloric content, and when they are asked to estimate the steepness of a hill, they are put it in front of the hill, they say how steep this hill is. People who are energy sufficient, they are saying that hill is less steep than people who are not energy sufficient. So it seems how your internal state is affecting the way you perceive the opportunity set for you to work on. So that also kind of, this is one research that is giving me a lot of material to work with, like taking this in the direction of seeing how risk affects the opportunity set, and hence how health affects the opportunity set. Okay. And risk and substitutability I already have mentioned. So data source. So it's a national longitudinal study of adolescent health. I wish Indian government would realize the importance of empirical analysis and institute something like this, where you track your youths and what are they thinking, what are the challenges they are facing. That way you can start making more youth-oriented policy, which is embedded in evidence. Okay. So these kids were first rounder data were collected when they were in 7th and 12th grade, and later they were followed 1 year later. Then in 2001, 2002, and again in 2007, 2008. So 4 waves of data are here, okay? And this is the stratified sampling design based on region, urbanization, school type, ethnic mix, and school size, okay? So it was a school-based data analysis. So coming back to Anindya's question, so outcome variable is how much do you agree with each statement about you as you generally are now, not as you wish to be in the future. I like to take risk, okay? Strongly agree, neither agree, nor disagree, strongly disagree, refused and don't know is just only around 0.2% of the sample, so I have excluded them. And then the primary independent variable in general, how is your health? Would you say excellent, very good, good, fair, poor? Exclusion, again, refused, I don't know. And both are validated measures. When I started using these measures, enough research was not there about the validity of these questions. Now there are. So the response from these questions correlates very nicely with domain-specific risk. Also in the laboratory, when people are asking this question and then making people do this play this game. And it correlates very highly with that. Even when they're doing with the money, with respect to their propensity to buy car insurance or health insurance, this variable is supporting that. This variable, one way to look into it is this is kind of a principal component of an individual. He's facing a vector, and that variable, how healthy you are, captures that variability. Okay? Same thing with risk and health, and both are validated measures. So we can talk later about how sufficient these variables are, but literature is supporting that. Okay? So if you look at this distribution of health stock and risk preference, when it comes to risk, this is when between wave 3 and wave 4, as these respondents are growing older, the whole distribution is moving towards the center. Okay? And in terms of health, as like this is wave 1 and this is wave 3. That's what I'll be looking at when I will talk about the change in health, and you will see that people are becoming a little more healthier as they are growing older. Okay. So control variable, these are individual specific control: age, sex, race, height, religiosity, birth weight, picture vocabulary test score, then neuroticism and conscientiousness. And then parent and household specific is parental education, work status, family income dummies, and then school specific is school dummies. This control for, that's where I'll be using this random effect model, where I will put the average at the level of school when it comes to health. Yeah, 2 different times. So that's the because data is that good, So I'm using linear model, OLS, random intercept model, then fixed effect, and then generalized order logic model. So the good thing about generalized order logic model is that it incorporates your risk type. Okay. So these are the summary statistics. You have 50% of them are males. Like in the wave 1, the average is 16. If you look at this mean of the risk measures in wave 3 and wave 4, you see that people are becoming less risk loving. Okay. Okay. So let me go share with you the main findings, summary from the result from linear regression in OLS. If health, these are ordinal variables. So here the explanative variable is 1 to 5. Okay. And you see that 1 unit change is affecting your risk type in a positive direction. Okay. And the difference between 1 and 2 is in 2 I am controlling for personality type. Okay, that's the only difference. The random effect, there's not much. So when you look into these coefficients, you see that there's not much selection that's going on once you control for these covariates, because there's not much change in that's one way to find out. If there would have been a lot of variation in the coefficient, then you will say the selection or unobservable might be playing a big role. Okay. Now I have dichomatized this explanative variable and its excellent health. When you're reporting you are in good health or very good health. Okay. And there the same conclusion goes through. The most interesting part is this positive change versus negative change. When you are in excellent health during adolescence and in not excellent health in your young adulthood, then there is not much change. None of them are significant. But when it's negative change, you are in excellent health and not in excellent in young adulthood, you are becoming more risk loving. And once you take the definition of homeostasis, all the time your brain is evaluating your homeostatic state of your body. So it remembers that past I was doing quite well, today I'm not doing that well. So it is willing to do whatever it takes to go back to its homeostatic equilibrium. That's the interpretation that I am giving. And that kind of gels very well with this idea of the way health is defined. Last definition of health is nothing but the measure of homeostasis. There is a very nice book called Homeostatic, this idea of homeostasis called the Serenity Rule. There is a national park in Tanzania called Serenity. And the way that whole national park maintains its equilibrium. So it's beautiful, we monitor, that's one thing that our brain monitors all the time, is our homeostatic equilibrium. Okay. So there's some other, I'm not reporting the coefficient for other other variables, but men are more likely to take risk. Like these are just to show you that these findings are in consonance with the earlier findings when it comes to other variables. So black, Hispanics, and those with graduate mother are more risk-seeking. So people who are more educated, they can identify more opportunities. So I don't know if you have heard of this research by Musfiq that came out in Econometrica about Bangladesh when he went and gave money to people to move to city to seek work. Point is, why I have to go, let's say that I can give him 100 rupees, he can move to a city and earn 2,000 rupees. Why I have to do that? Why he could not figure that at his own? No? Because people who are not in good health on an average, maybe they are not that exploratory. And that's why they are not aware of the options that they have. So that aspect, Professor Sundar is very excited about. That if we might use this real option theory to investigate the role of health. Okay? Then neurotics are less risk-seeking. So what happens is when you are not doing very well in terms of health, your system 1 takes over. And system 1 is automatic response, flight and fight response. And it becomes very inward, it's not exploratory anymore. Okay? And data is showing that this neurotic they are less risk-seeking, and Baker also, he reports that same finding. The surprising thing was, I did not find that conscientiousness is correlated with risk measures. Okay, that I was expecting. This is generalized order logic model, and here you can same findings goes through, but it's a little bit more wrinkled. Okay, so I will just focus here on risk preference, negative change. So when you are experiencing negative change in your health, it depends on what kind of risk type you are. If you are a high risk type, then you are more responsive to changes in your health in comparison to when you are low risk type. Okay? And this is when I'm controlling for personality measures. So it is associated with both health and risk preference because it is affecting at least your magnitude. But general conclusion, it goes through. Okay. So the health as well as change in health status both affect attitude towards risk. This is my effort to open the black box of risk preference. What are its determinant, and probably get some more policy levers or make health more salient for policymakers or for other researchers. Okay. It has to do with the functioning of the market, access and efficiency. I have already discussed that, and the ideal thing to do will be to acknowledge this thing that health is fundamentally a weighted average of multiple factors. In the absence of much knowledge about the causality of underlying factor, one needs to leverage a local culture along with modern healthcare to keep oneself in good health. So why I'm in Kenya, let me just, otherwise I'll forget. In Kenya, this woman, she is going to the older people and asking, what you used to eat? And she is helping farmers to grow those food that they were eating before colonial system came in. And they are doing far better on many health indicators. So when I was growing up in Bihar, we used to eat red rice. And over time, we stopped eating that. We all were eating white rice because it's a matter of status. But white rice is far worse for your health than red rice. So given that we don't know actually in a very concrete sense, what are the individual factors that goes into making a person healthier, we have to leverage the local knowledge to help people get into better health. So that I was talking briefly with Anindya about this project that I'm talking to many people about is using the idea of incubation center community kitchen and restaurant, and educational tourism. Bundle all together and do it at the panchayat level. Process information, what these guys were eating, what kind of plants were available in past that's not available today. So that it's all part of the education. No, it's all part of engagement. That will start giving you many clues about what kind of things we can do in these areas. Educational tourism, in a sense that you bring students from all over the world and pass them through this system. Like we can set up something like Airbnb for Indian panchayats. And start with like 15, 20 panchayats, you set up these centers, see its effect, and then scale. Because I don't think the way we are trying to understand the levers is going to help us much. We have to pull in many factors together, understand its complementarity, and leverage that. Okay? And that will go into, not only it will make people healthier, it will also create more innovative culture, and what I was talking earlier to all of you about. Okay? So that is the intellectual foundation this paper is providing for me for that kind of project. Okay? And then we are looking into this age dimension, that like, does the measure of risk preference show malleability or variability across age? That's the future work for me. I have not invested that much time. What are the factors that influence health? And then this role of diet and seeking. So I can recruit people with micronutrient deficiency, let's say anemia, and ask them to play some games. There's a very nice game called balloon game, where on the computer you are given option to keep clicking till balloon blasts. A balloon on the computer, and when people stop, that kind of gives you their measure of risk aversion. So those things can be that's the future. In future, I'm planning to do that. So limitation and future direction. So objective measure can be one way. Lab and field experiment, I'm exploring with Professor Sundar. Designing intervention to help with maintaining and improving health. That's the rural incubation community kitchen community restaurant idea. Then extending the study to older population. Yes, now I can.
Because I'm very interested in your area of work, I keep asking so many questions.
No, that's why I'm here for,
Positive side. So the way the health indices are measured, it's a self-explicated measure. It's self-reported. So to that extent, is it more like overconfidence leading to proposal?
So I cannot deny that, especially young people, they might report they're in better health than they really are. So that's one of the reasons I first used all the measure 1 to 5 and then dichomatized it, created dummy for excellent health. There you reduce the measurement error. When you bucket people just in 2 buckets rather than 5 buckets. Yeah, so I'm cognizant of that, but also in the future one can use the objective measures.
The reason why I thought of that is because you're using a cognitive psychology route to explain this. Usually when you're in resource abundance framework, that kind of, you have more money or you have more time, or in this case more health, you're generally more relaxed, and so the confidence trickles down to your neuron level, and then the way you make decisions happens like that. So you want to probably think of separating out the intrinsic confidence.
Yeah, actually there is a variable which can measure overconfidence in this data. So that's a nice suggestion.
Yeah, actually this reminds me that in many of those stock market experiments, related to that, I was reading an experiment where researchers asked that, do you consider yourself to be a better than average driver? Or
75%.
So more than around 80% people say that we are better than average. Now that cannot be possible. So which means that self-reported, the point that she is picking up, I think
that's very important.
Very important.
Very important. So I will try to incorporate that. Thanks for that.
And suppose I'm playing devil's advocate here, and maybe I am. So what are the effects of income? That suppose I did not.
It's not as big as in. If you look into my paper, do you have access to my paper? So if you, yeah. So if you look into paper, income variable is there, and it's not as significant as health after you control for health. So income might be mediating its effect through health. So health, because like richer people are healthier, probably except in India. India is probably the only country where richer women, they are obese and not doing very well than any other country. Any other question? Yeah, that is also I have control. Income level is at the parents level. So. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for all the questions. That's precisely why I decided to come, because bringing people on board on this, the importance of this question, was the sole purpose. So.